Imagine a world where the mightiest war machines crumble like paper under relentless fire. By October 14, Ukrainian forces had obliterated 11,256 Russian tanks, according to their Ministry of Defense. Vladimir Putin, in his boundless ego, believed he held the trump card. He thought Ukraine was merely wasting ammo on outdated relics. His prized T-90M tanks lay hidden, waiting for their moment. When released near Pokrovsk, Ukraine dismantled them swiftly. A year's hoard of superiority evaporated in mere minutes. What if paper promise turned to battlefield ash? In the thick of Donetsk's dust-choked plains, Putin's gamble unfolded. For nearly a year, Russia amassed T-90 EMS, per David Acts of Forbes. These beasts aimed to smash through Ukrainian lines, seizing the vital hub of Pokrovsk. Summer infantry probes fizzled. Now, T-90 EMS, the so-called kings, would claim victory. Putin bragged in June 2023, the T-90M is the world's best tank. It strikes from afar, precision unmatched. No enemy stands. Ukraine shattered that illusion on October 9. Feel the rumble of denial echoing through Kremlin halls. How does a leader recover when his idol crumbles? Picture the T-90M specs, a 125mm smoothbore cannon blasting rounds up to 13,120 feet, missiles piercing even farther at 16,400 feet via laser guidance. Its coaxial MG bursts shred flesh and steel alike. Cruising at 37.2 miles per hour, it devours 341 miles on a tank. Relic armor explodes to deflect blasts, Q-net shields fend off grenades. Impressive ink on sheet. But flesh and earth paint a grisly reality. Ukraine's arsenal, drones buzzing like enraged wasps, mines snapping like jaws, artillery thundering overwhelms. Paper prowess bends under battlefield chaos. Could hubris doom an empire's finest? Amid summer subterfuge, Putin plotted mechanized doom near Pokrovsk. Infantry slunk into settlements like ghosts. Target, Shakova, 12.4 miles north. He marshaled 36 tanks, especially T-90 EMS, 40 armored beasts, and hundreds of troops. Overrun it, and Pokrovsk falls. October 9 dawned with clanking fury. Sensing the stench of diesel and fear. Why charge into a storm when skies predict ruin? Ukrainian defenses loomed, the 225th Assault Regiment entrenched, bolstered by Azov Corps veterans who'd clawed back villages. Mines dotted earth, drones hovered like vultures, artillery poised. Waves hit, motorcyclists first, vulnerable bait to drain fires. Then tanks roared, infantry clinging. Gunfire cracked the air, screams pierced the smoky veil. Wheels churned mud, wheels burned. How many lives drained for a failed chess move? Russia's assault thudded on. Mines erupted in fiery blooms, drones swooped with precision, artillery shells slammed. Vehicles scattered to Volodymyrivka. 20 smashed, 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, 41 bikes, 2 light rigs. Perhaps civilian vans, exposed meat shields. Night's bomber drones hunted survivors, engines whining, explosions lighting night. Dead, 107. Wounded, 51. Marines from elites bled out. Does elite mock hollow honor? Putin's humiliation flared bright. Months of hoarding, faith in T-90M's glory. Pitted against Ukraine's web of tech and tenacity. Routed in hours. Year-long plot ash. Mech assaults met Ukrainian mastery, mines biting, drones stinging, guns roaring. T-90 EMS, Soviet ghosts in modern guise. Rostek crowed in May, world's best. Reality, vulnerable echo. If illusions shatter, what truths remain for a dictator? War's bitter lesson, overconfidence poisons might. T-90 EMS, paraded saviors, exposed as brittle shells. Ukraine's resolve, sensory onslaught, ear-piercing booms, acrid smoke, trembling ground, unraveled Russian myth. Putin's boast mocked by muddy defeat. Recoil lingers, unanswered. Can pride mend cracks in armor? The battlefield whispers cruel answers. Imagine launching the world's most advanced tank into battle, only to watch it crumble in minutes. That's the shocking reality Vladimir Putin faced on October 9, when Ukraine dismantled Russia's prized T-90M tanks near Pokrovsk. Ukraine has obliterated a staggering 11,256 of Russia's tanks by October 14, according to their Ministry of Defense, proving Putin's best-in-the-world claims were nothing but hollow boasts. For over a year, Putin hoarded these T-90Ms, reserving them for what he believed was a decisive strike, confident they'd shatter Ukraine's last defenses. But Ukraine flipped the script, turning Russia's mechanized might into scrap metal overnight. This isn't just a setback, it's a brutal humiliation that exposes the cracks in Putin's war machine. We'll dive deep into how Putin pinned his hopes on the T-90M, armed and armored to dominate. But remember, paper specs mean nothing against real battlefield fury. So, why did Putin's premier tank fail so spectacularly? Let's uncover the shocking truth behind the T-90M's defeat. Continuing from Putin's misplaced confidence in the T-90M's specs, he hurled it into a vicious assault on Shakova village, just 12.4 miles north of Pokrovsk. Can you picture the ear-splitting roar of 36 tanks rumbling forward, flanked by armored vehicles and 40 motorcyclists, all aimed at crushing Ukraine's defenses? Axe reports this armored beast included plenty of T-90M models, poised to exploit a 24.8-mile salient Russia carved in the summer. Shakova anchors Ukraine's eastern lines, overrun it, and Pokrovsk would crumble. Russia's plan? Embed troops, fortify, and launch deeper incursions. The air thrummed with diesel fumes and engine growls, the ground vibrating under heavy treads. Yet, Ukraine's 225th Assault Regiment and Azov Corps operatives waited, their fingers itching on triggers. What twisted surprise awaited? Hold on to that suspense as we plunge into the ambush that changed everything. Building on Russia's wave-like attack strategy, starting with vulnerable motorcyclists to drain Ukraine's ammo, mines exploded first, deafening booms echoing through the night, soil erupting in fiery plumes. Drones buzzed like angry hornets, spotting and striking, while artillery rained down with thunderous cracks, splintering armor and flesh. Cannon blasts ripped open T-90M turrets, the metallic tang of gunpowder filling the air. Ukraine's defensive barrage shattered 20 vehicles, scattering survivors back to Valerianivka. Bomber drones hovered ominously, picking off stragglers under the starry canopy, their engines whining faintly. By dawn, silence reigned, broken only by the distant groans of the wounded. Russia lost 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, 41 motorcyclists, and 2 light rigs, likely civilian cars offering zero protection. Axe confirms 107 killed and 51 wounded among Russia's elite Marines, their bravest troops decimated. How did Putin's year-long tank gambit turn into this carnage? Feel the sting of defeat looming as we explore the T-90M's fatal flaws. From the ashes of that mechanized slaughter, Russia's overconfidence in the T-90M crumbles like stale propaganda. Despite specs boasting a 125mm 2A4-6M4 smoothbore gun firing up to 13,120 feet. With missiles hitting 16,400 feet via laser guidance, plus a 7.62mm coaxial machine gun shredding infantry and armor, agile at 37.2 miles per hour with 341-mile range extendable by rear fuel tanks. Even with relict explosive reactive armor and QNet kits deflecting blasts and grenades, it's no match for Ukraine's arsenal. Putin touted it as unbeatable in June 2023, yet paper perfection dissolved in battlefield reality. Rosteks may call T-90M, T-72B3M, and T-80BVM the world's best serial tanks, but Ukraine's been vaporizing older models by the hundreds since invasion began. Why cling to relics dressed in modern veneer? The stench of burnt circuitry and twisted metal lingers. Was this tank always a mirage? Brace for the ultimate revelation that shattered Putin's empire. Imagine the roar of tanks rumbling through the dust, the air thick with tension and anticipation. On October 9, a battle loomed, not just over land, but over pride and perception. For many months, Russia held back its prized T-90M tanks, believing they were unbeatable instruments of war. The plan was intricately laid out, an assault on the village of Shakova, a strategic point north of Pokrovsk. The goal? To crush Ukraine's defenses, solidify control, and claim victory. But would confidence alone secure success? In a shocking turn of events, as Russia launched its mechanized attack, something unexpected happened. While Moscow thought it had a winning strategy, Ukraine countered with fierce determination. Ukrainian forces weren't caught off guard, they were ready, strategically bolstered by the unity of their 225th Assault Regiment and the fearsome 1st Azov Corps. As waves of Russian forces advanced, they met a wall of explosive resistance. Mines shattered the ground, drones buzzed like angry wasps, and artillery rained down chaos. What was supposed to be a triumph for Russia quickly turned into chaos, as 20 enemy vehicles were hit, including tanks that had been hailed as the best in the world. Scattering back in disarray, Russian soldiers retreated to Volodymyrivka, a village just south of Shkova. Ukrainian bomber drones pounced on their misfortune throughout the night, hunting any remnants left behind. The results were catastrophic for Russia: 3 lost tanks, 16 armored fighting vehicles, and 41 motorcycles reduced to wreckage littering the ground. Oddly enough, it seems many of Russia's light vehicles may have been civilian cars, reflecting the grim reality that 90% of their vehicle losses were indeed non-military. The soldiers, thought to be among the elite Marina brigades, faced dire consequences, with confirmed losses of 107 killed and 51 injured. Were they truly the best, or merely shadows of a once great military? What unfolded was not just a tactical failure, but a resounding humiliation. These tank units Russia had so meticulously reserved for this moment fell apart under the weight of Ukrainian resilience. In a battle that took less than a day, Putin's months of preparation crumbled, revealing that the T-90M tanks hailed as superior were not so invincible after all. Instead, they became another symbol of overconfidence and outdated technology, forcing Russia's leader to confront an uncomfortable truth: papers and proclamations of superiority don't win wars, actions do. And as the dust settles, the question remains: how did the crown jewel of Russia's military arsenal succumb in such a short span? This battle wasn't just about territory, it was a stark reminder that resilience and strategy often outweigh sheer force. The battlefield remains a poignant teacher, reminding all that the best laid plans can backfire spectacularly in the chaos of war. In the unfolding saga of conflict, a staggering river of Russian armored might was said to flow unchallenged, yet the truth hides in shadows. On October 9, in a brutal awakening, Ukraine decimated Russia's revered T-90M tanks with a heart-stopping efficiency that left the Kremlin reeling. 11,256 Russian tanks had crumbled at the hands of Ukrainian defenses, yet Vladimir Putin held steadfast, convinced his best machines were gathering dust, awaiting their moment of glory. But had he miscalculated everything? Flashback: a scent of fear and smoke. The dusty air clung with the smell of gunpowder as soldiers prepared for what was anticipated to be their finest hour. There was a buzz of excitement mixed with palpable dread. Would the T-90MS finally turn the tide for Russia? Little did they know, the ghosts of battles past loomed large, whispering warnings. With a year's strategy under his belt, Putin unleashed the T-90MS, intent on proving their might in an assault aimed at seizing Pokrovsk. Russia's brunt force surged, boasting 36 armored giants, bolstered by a coil of motorcycle troops. The village of Shkova represented the key to breaking Ukrainian defenses. Yet as they advanced, belief turned quickly into disillusionment. When the attack commenced, there was no roar of victory, only the deafening silence of an expected crush that never came. Ukraine, far from unprepared, lay poised with a strategy that scythed through Russia's ranks. Their own defenses, fortified by the 225th Assault Regiment and the merciless Azov Corps, were a steel wall against which Russia would crash. Dreadful emergence, a revelation of despair as motorcycle troops rushed into the fray like moths to flames, artillery rained down with stinging precision. Strike after strike, Ukrainian drones and mines transformed the mechanized invasion into a retreat and embarrassment cloaked in chaos. In one unexpected twist, Ukraine claimed victory by decimating 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, and 41 motorcycles. The numbers spun a dark, cruel story that echoed through military ranks: 107 dead, with over 50 wounded, alongside the vehicles claimed by the fierce onslaught. Putin's gamble, relying on the T-90M, the armor which he deemed the best in the world, collapsed into a farce. Assertions of its power dissolved against the reality of shrapnel, smoke, and screams mingling in the smoky battleground. The very weapon he believed would restore pride transformed into a shambolic reminder of Russia's overconfidence. As the dust settled on that fateful day, the symbolism of defeat was etched deeply in the fabric of Russian pride. Turning point, an unexpected echo. It became eerily clear what looked impressive on paper had faltered on the battlefield. The T-90M, cloaked in the remnants of Soviet engineering, stood exposed, stripped of its glorified armor and pride. Putin had proclaimed it a marvel, the realization set in that perhaps it was just another remnant of an aging empire, masquerading in modernity but failing when it mattered most. As Russia sought to fortify its narrative with claims of the T-90M's prowess, defeat rang louder than propaganda. With overconfidence reigning, the truth unfolded: outdated technology could never match the resolve of well-prepared defenders. In a war where each day brings twisted turns of fate, what will be the next move? Only time will unveil the final chapter in this relentless saga. Will Russia rise to reclaim its grandeur, or will it continue to plunge further into the depths of despair born from its own miscalculations? The stage is set for the next act, as the echoes of October 9 linger ominously in history's shadow. In the heat of battle, over 11,000 Russian tanks have fallen victim to Ukraine's relentless counteroffensive. As of mid-October, Ukraine's Ministry of Finance revealed a staggering number: 11,256 tanks obliterated. Yet, amid this destruction looms Vladimir Putin, convinced of his martial prowess. He believes the problem lies with Ukraine's outdated Soviet-era machinery, while he keeps Russia's crown jewels, the T-90M tanks, out of immediate danger. When the time finally came for the T-90MS to emerge, Putin had grand plans. He hoped these advanced tanks would crush the last vestiges of Ukrainian resistance in Pokrovsk, a strategic logistical hub. However, the reality of war would soon turn Putin's hopes into a brutal lesson in overconfidence. In a major offensive on October 9, Russia unleashed its best tanks in an attempt to take the village of Shikova, just north of Pokrovsk, with an overwhelming force of 36 tanks, including plenty of T-90MS, and a motley crew of motorcycle infantry. But Ukraine was ready. The 225th Assault Regiment, reinforced by the brave operatives from the notorious 1st Azov Corps, fortified their defenses. As the first wave of Russian troops surged forth, a parade of tanks and armored vehicles, it became clear that this would not end in the triumph Putin had envisioned. Amid the sounds of deep rumbles and rising tensions, Ukraine's warriors prepared, armed with an arsenal ready to defend their homeland. As the assault began, the Russians quickly found themselves ensnared in a deadly trap. Mines exploded, drones buzzed overhead, and artillery thundered, halting their advance. Instead of breaking through, they shattered under the pressure. Ukrainian forces marked a resounding victory, hitting 20 enemy vehicles and forcing the Russians to retreat in disarray. The grim tally, a loss of 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, and 41 motorcycles, would echo through the corridors of the Kremlin. It said the battlefield whispered tragedies while the Ukrainian drones circled above, ensuring no Russian soldier was left standing in Volodymyrivka by dawn's light. A staggering 107 Russian lives were lost that day. Yet, why did these once fearsome tanks falter? The T-90M, shrouded in myth and praised as the world's best, revealed weaknesses that would haunt its crews. Could their design flaws truly withstand the modern battlefield? The seemingly unrivaled tank crumbled under the storm of javelin missiles and drone onslaughts, completely unprepared for the ferocity of Ukraine's response. As the dust settled, Putin faced a sobering realization: his prized T-90M, with all its batch of advanced features and supposed superiority, was just another relic of a bygone era. What remains of the T-90M's honor is but a whisper of its promised capabilities, while the battlefield painted a stark picture, the past colliding violently with the present. In the aftermath, the battlefield questioned whether technology can overshadow tactics. Putin's strategy, once viewed as infallible, now lay in ruins, revealing an unexpected truth: the heart of warfare is less about machines and more about the indomitable spirit of those who wield them. As whispers of defeat turned into roars of victory, one question lingered in the air: what happens when perceived excellence is met with sheer determination? You thought Russia's prized T-90M tanks would conquer everything, didn't you? Ukraine tore that fantasy apart in a brutal, one-sided massacre on October 9, exposing the emperor's new armor for what it truly is: a paper tiger crumbling under real fire. Shockwaves still reverberate. How can a tank hailed as the world's best get obliterated in minutes, leaving Putin's grand plans in ashes? Despite Ukraine's relentless success in obliterating over 11,000 Russian tanks, including a devastating display against the so-called invincible T-90M on October 9, President Vladimir Putin clings to his illusions, pushing harder on outdated machinery that keeps failing spectacularly. Picture the acrid smoke of explosions, the deafening roars of artillery shattering armor, the ground trembling under relentless drone strikes. It's a nightmare loop for Russia's forces. But wait, is Russia truly ready to abandon the T-90M after such humiliations in Ukraine? Absolutely not. Instead, it's doubling down, ramping up production in a desperate gambit that might spell even deeper troubles. Was Putin's boast about the T-90M being unbeatable just empty bravado, waiting to explode in his face? In June, United 24 Media revealed Russia's aggressive push to manufacture more T-90EMS, according to the conflict intelligence team. They claim Russia churned out between 280 and 300 of these tanks in 2024, a massive leap from previous years. Flashback to those grueling factory floors, the metallic clang of hammers forging hulls, the sharp scent of welding sparks, the rough grip of tools slipping in sweaty hands. It builds an image of relentless output, yet beneath the hype, it's a facade of strength. Before that, in 2022, production hovered between 60 and 70 units, jumping to 140 to 180 in 2023. Pang, each number a stark reminder of Russia's over-reliance on a tank that Ukraine destroys like child's play. With Ukraine annihilating around 11,300 tanks total, so about 3,000 per year, this frantic manufacturing barely scratches the surface, producing less than a tenth of what's lost. Russia thought it had a winning formula, but the battlefield screams otherwise. Can stockpiling failures really prepare for victory, or is this just lining up more targets for Ukraine's arsenal? That barrage of production begs the question, why is Russia betting big on the T-90M, a tank proven to be a sitting duck against Ukraine's savvy defenses? United 24 Media suggests it's a bit to bolster reserves for the future, maybe rebuilding after staggering losses or positioning for exports once the war cools. But let's twist the knife. Could this obsession stem from denial, forcing good tanks away from the front to save them for a perfect moment that never comes? Perhaps it's pulling from stockpiles depleted by summer defeats around Pokrovsk, where Russia's elite forces couldn't break through. The stench of burned fuel and twisted metal lingers from those failures, the weight of crushed dreams pressing down. Whatever the motive, exporting T-90EMs post-conflict looks increasingly implausible. Even before the invasion, Russia struggled to sell these war machines. India inked a deal for 469 units back in 2019. Valued at around $2 billion, that's over $4.2 million per tank. Yet, with Ukraine shredding them effortlessly using javelins, mines, drones, and artillery as the national interest reports, buyers might steer clear. Is Russia dooming itself to a glut of expensive junk, or will this backfire spectacularly on global markets? Fueled by propaganda and necessity, Russia's state-owned Rostec boasts endlessly about the T-90M's superiority. In May, Rostec's first deputy CEO Vladimir Artyakov proclaimed it the world's best serial-produced tank, crediting a team of developers, designers, engineers, technologists, and workers for delivering Russia's finest for modern combat. Feel the vibration of machinery humming in unison, the oily residue clinging to fingers, the triumphant echoes of hollow claims. But hyperbole masks reality. Why parade a tank as unbeatable when older models like the T-72 and T-80 have been wrecked by the hundreds? Russia's overconfidence in Soviet-era tech shines through, a bitter irony that could unravel Putin's war machine entirely. Will he finally confront the truth, or push on until the T-90M haunts his every decision? Ukraine's relentless counteroffensive has obliterated over 11,000 Russian tanks by October 14. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance, these were older Soviet models. Right? Vladimir Putin claimed he had a master plan, saving his prized T-90Ms for a crushing blow. A decisive assault on Pokrovsk. Imagine the battlefield tension. The sharp crack of unexploded mines. The acrid stench of diesel smoke from hidden bunkers. Putin boasted the T-90M is unbeatable. The world's finest tank. Why unleash it now? He waxed poetic in June 2023, praising its unbeatable firepower, superior range, bulletproof defenses. But could his arrogance blind him? The assault on Shakova shattered that illusion. Russia kept stockpiling T-90Ms for a year, hoarding them like treasures. David Axe of Euromaidan Press revealed it. A massive mechanized push into Donetsk Oblast to seize Pokrovsk, the crown jewel. Russia's best met Ukraine's iron wall. In a village 12.4 miles north, 36 tanks roared in. Among them, gleaming T-90Ms 40 motorized troops added firepower. Hear the thunderous rumble of tracks crushing dirt? The bitter taste of dust in the air? The hum of drones overhead. Russia targeted Shakova as a foothold. A lifeline east of a 24.8-mile salient carved in summer. Embedding troops there promised a rampage toward the city. Putin dreamed of victory. Until Ukraine's defenders swarmed like shadows. Ukraine stood ready in Shakova. The 225th Assault Regiment fortified positions. bolstered by the 1st Azov Corps. Seasoned warriors who reclaimed settlements in summer. They built a labyrinth of traps. Mines buried like deadly whispers. Drones hovering like vultures. Artillery poised like coiled serpents. The 1st Azov Corps described it on Telegram. Waves of attacks. Motorcycles first. Soaking up ammo. Then armored columns. Tanks spewing fire. It felt like clockwork chaos. What if Russia's plan backfired? The roar of engines drowned out cries. Acrid smoke choked the senses. Bullets whizzed with lethal zips. A thunderous barrage halted them. 20 vehicles shredded. Including 3 tanks. Survivors fled to Volodymyrivka. A hellish night followed. Bomber drones hunted relentlessly. Gnawing at the remnants. The stench of burning metal lingered. What haunted Putin most? Russia's losses pierced like daggers. 3 tanks gone. 16 armored vehicles wrecked. 41 motorcycles pulverized. 2 light vehicles erased. Russia's supposed elite faltered. 107 soldiers killed. 51 wounded. Peak Marine brigades, handpicked for the fight. Were they Russia's best? Their screams echoed amid explosions. The gritty scrape of boots in retreat. Yet the T-90MS specs promised dominance. A 125mm smoothbore gun. Anti-tank missiles flying up to 16,400 feet. A coaxial 7.62mm machine gun. Speed reaching 37.2 miles per hour. Range up to 341 miles. Exploding reactive armor. QNet kits against grenades. On paper, a fortress. In battle, a facade. Ukraine's kaleidoscope of threats shredded it. Mines detonating with earth-shaking booms. Drones buzzing like angry bees. Artillery raining judgment. Russia stockpiled T-90MS for a year. Unleashing them in humiliation. Putin's assault crumbled in under a day. A year's conceit evaporated. Ukraine exposed the myth. The T-90M, just another Soviet relic. Dressed in false glory. Could Putin's overconfidence doom him further? Russia's Rostec hailed the T-90M in May 2023. Best for modern combat. Aggregate excellence. Hyperbole for propaganda? But reality mocked it. Ukraine proved that. Yet Putin's bigger woes loomed. Flashback to 2019. India's deal with Russia. 469 T-90MS, worth over $2 billion. Per unit, 4.2 million. To mass produce, Russia sought billions in revenue. But India recoiled. By 2020, complaints flooded in. Poor performance. Failures in 17th Tankathlon. 19 countries competed. India tanked. Malfunctions aborted it. By 2024, rebuilding from scratch. Ditching plans for more. Preferring the French Leclerc. Pre-war doubts surfaced. One key buyer abandoned it. Could this failure hurt Russia's sales? Back to October 9. Ukraine dismantled Putin's mechanized dream. T-90MS powerless. Assault aborted swiftly. Russia may deploy more from stockpiles. Ukraine will obliterate them. Turning the so-called world's best into battlefield junk. The T-90M embodies Putin's colossal failures. Eroding Russia's core. Larger crises await. Could the T-90MS flop kill Russia's export dreams? Especially post-Ukraine humiliations? Even pre-war, sales stuttered. Putin faces far graver tanks than modern iron. What hidden disasters lurk? Stay tuned as shadows elongate. Imagine the roar of engines, the acrid stench of gunpowder lingering in the air. How did Putin, the mighty chess master of Russia, end up with his prized T-90M tanks, crumbling like outdated relics under Ukrainian fire? You won't believe how Ukraine's defiance turned Russia's grand plans into a battlefield farce. Ukraine has obliterated Russia's tanks on a massive scale, destroying over 11,256 of them by October 14. according to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance. But Vladimir Putin, in his infinite cunning, thought he had outsmarted them. Ukraine was wasting ammunition on Soviet-era clunkers, while Russia hoarded its elite T-90M tanks, waiting for the perfect strike. Then, Putin unleashed them near Pokrovsk, only for Ukraine to shred them in minutes, proving they were no better than the junk already lost. Russia stockpiled T-90. After months of poking Ukraine with small infantry units sneaking into villages near Pokrovsk, Russia aimed its sights at a tiny stronghold called Shkova. It's just 12.4 miles north of the city, and Putin assembled a terrifying lineup, 36 tanks, packed with T-90M models and armored vehicles, plus 40 motorcycle troops. What dark plan was unfolding? Could this armored horde shatter Ukraine's lines? The dread builds as we dive in. What if I told you Russia's vaunted T-90M tank, hailed by Putin as the world's finest, crumbled in a day, exposing his grand illusion? Imagine the roar of engines, the stench of diesel mingling with gunpowder, tires biting into mud as soldiers' hearts pounded like war drums. Shkova wasn't just a village, it anchored Ukraine's defenses east of a 24.8-mile bulge Russia clawed out during summer assaults. Overrun it, fortify it, and it becomes a launchpad to plunge into Pokrovsk itself. October 9th dawned with that mechanized avalanche unleashed. But Ukraine waited, ready to crush the beast. The clash erupted in savage waves, as Ukraine's defenders described in a vivid after-battle report. Enemy forces struck from multiple flanks. First came swarms of motorcycles, vulnerable riders silhouetted against the horizon, their revving engines screaming like distant thunder. Then columns of armored beasts, tanks rumbling like earthquakes, vehicles clanking, infantry huddled inside, tasting the acrid smoke of fear. Putin thought this clever, sacrificed the bikes to drain Ukraine's bullets, saving the monsters for slaughter. But the trap snapped shut. Brutal truths emerged from the carnage. Russia's so-called masterpiece tank proved no match for the gauntlet. Sensory nightmares unfolded, the sharp crack of mines exploding, earth erupting in fountains of dirt and shrapnel, the whir of drones diving like vultures, artillery booms echoing, shaking bones to the core. Ukraine's 241st Assault Brigade held the ground, bolstered by elite 1st Azov Corps fighters who'd just reclaimed nearby hamlets. Together, they forged a wall of steel and grit. Waves crashed futilely, Russia's advance grinding to a halt as defenders scored devastating hits, 20 vehicles obliterated, including 3 tanks shattered into smoking husks in a glorious defensive barrage. But wait, how did Russia's elite forces, driving the best tank in the world, get routed so utterly, scattering back to Volodymyrivka? The night air grew thick with dread, bomber drones humming like angry bees, picking off remnants under bleak skies. As dawn broke, crushing realities hit Putin, only echoes of defeat remained, and the question lingered like poison in his mind. Had he just squandered his prized arsenal on another embarrassing flop, or was this the crack in his empire's facade widening into a chasm? The battlefield whispered secrets of overconfidence shattered, urging one unthinkable conclusion: what if his unbeatable tanks were nothing but gilded relics, doomed to become scrap under Ukraine's relentless gaze? In a shocking twist of fate, Ukraine has systematically dismantled thousands of Russian tanks, totaling an astonishing 11,256 by October 14, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Finance. Amidst this chaos, Vladimir Putin believed he was strategically smart, holding back Russia's most advanced T-90M tanks while the Soviet-era models bore the brunt of the battle. But little did he know, when he finally unleashed those supposedly superior tanks on the village of Pokrovsk, disaster was looming. Ukraine was more than ready to confront the new threat with a fury that left Russia reeling in humiliation as they dismantled the T-90MS in mere minutes. For nearly a year, Russia amassed its T-90M tanks, envisioning a decisive assault on Ukraine's defenses. David Axe of Euromedian Press details how Putin had grand plans for these machineries to crush the last remnants of Ukrainian resistance and secure the strategic city of Pokrovsk, which he had expected to capture earlier. With high hopes, the Russian leader touted the T-90M as the best tank in the world, claiming it could fire with greater accuracy and velocity than any other. But on October 9, reality struck hard. Those claims would meet their match. In an intense showdown, Russia attempted a mechanized assault on Shkova, north of Pokrovsk, marshalling 36 tanks and an overwhelming force to seize the strategically important village. The tactical goal was simple: overwhelm Ukrainian defenses and establish a stronghold. However, as the onslaught commenced, Ukrainian troops were well prepared. Fortified by units like the 225th Assault Regiment and the notorious Azov Corps. The attack began in waves, with ill-fated motorcycle troops sent first to draw fire from the entrenched defenders. The advance did not go as planned. Drones, mines, and artillery effectively thwarted the Russians' push. In mere moments, 20 Russian vehicles were destroyed, including 3 of their precious tanks. The aftermath revealed total chaos for the aggressors, who were soon scattered back to Volodymyrivka, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Under the cover of night, Ukrainian bomber drones hunted down surviving forces, leaving no Russian soldier unscathed. The cold stark truth became evident by the end of that catastrophic day. Russia lost 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, and 41 motorcycles. Among the confirmed casualties, 107 Russian lives were irrevocably lost, with many others wounded, a staggering price for a plan that had been meticulously crafted over months. Were these the elite forces Putin relied on for success? They were among his best. But even the most skilled troops could not contend with a tank fleet crumbling under the weight of outdated technology. What followed was a sobering realization for Russia. The seemingly unrivaled T-90M was anything but. Defensive measures that should have safeguarded this so-called best-in-class tank crumbled against modern threats from Ukraine's arsenal. The world's best tank had revealed itself a mere relic, highlighted by a series of catastrophic design flaws that had become painfully apparent on the battlefield. Through this lens, the events of October 9 become a stunning lesson in overconfidence, a crash course on how outdated machinery and grandiose beliefs can lead to total disaster. As the dust settles, Putin faces an uncomfortable truth. Amidst the wreckage of his military dreams, the T-90M now stands as a chilling reminder of how arrogance can pave the way for ultimate failure. And what might be next for this beleaguered regime? Only time will tell as the battle for modern warfare continues to unfold. In a stunning display of military conflict, Ukraine has reportedly dismantled over 11,256 Russian tanks as of mid-October, according to Ukrainian officials. Yet, amidst these staggering losses, Russian President Vladimir Putin believed he had a winning strategy. His logic? The majority of Ukraine's victories were against outdated Soviet-era tanks, while he held back Russia's most advanced models. However, when he finally unleashed these presumed powerhouses, the T-90M tanks, on the battlefield, the results were anything but triumphant. On October 9, a significant military operation unfolded near Pokrovsk. Putin had high hopes that the T-90M tanks, considered the pinnacle of Russian engineering, would decisively turn the tide for his forces. Marketed by Putin as the best tank in the world, the T-90M was equipped with state-of-the-art technology, promising exceptional firepower and protection. But the reality proved different when faced with Ukraine's fierce defense. What followed was an ambush that would leave Russian forces reeling. As waves of Russian troops and an array of armored vehicles surged toward the small village of Shkova, Ukraine's 225th Assault Regiment and the elite 1st Azov Corps had already fortified their defenses. The air crackled with tension as armored columns, motorcycle troops, and infantry launched their assault, only to encounter an impenetrable wall of Ukrainian resistance. The battlefield echoed with the sounds of artillery and the whir of drones as Ukrainian forces struck decisively. Mines exploded beneath Russian vehicles, and drones rained devastation from above. In mere moments, 20 Russian vehicles were rendered useless, including 3 of their prized T-90M tanks. Retreat quickly became the only option. By the end of the turmoil, the grim tally left Putin's ambitions shattered. Russia had lost 3 tanks, 16 armored fighting vehicles, and 41 motorcycles, alongside 107 confirmed losses of soldiers and undeniable humiliation. This was not just an operational failure, it was a stark revelation of the inadequacies of the T-90M against modern anti-tank warfare. What mistakes led to this miscalculated assault? The heart of the issue lay deep within the T-90M's design. Despite its modern facade, this tank is a product of decades-old technology. Facing off against contemporary countermeasures, it has crumbled under pressure, revealing a weakness not just in the machinery but in the entire Russian military philosophy. As the dust began to settle on October 10, the real question lingered: how could a tank touted as the world's best succumb so swiftly? What lessons would Putin draw from this staggering defeat? The reality is clear: the T-90M, dressed in the trappings of modern warfare, is unprepared to meet the demands of the battlefield where advanced tactics and weaponry rule supreme. The echoes of despair from the battlefield serve as a somber reminder that overconfidence in outdated technology leads to perilous consequences that may reshape the future of military engagements. What does the road ahead look like for Russia as they confront the reality of their failures? As the remnants of the T-90M lie in ruins, one must wonder, can they adapt? Or will they continue to stumble through the shadows of their own hubris? On October 9, Ukraine was ready for a challenge. Russia had targeted the small village of Shkova, amassing a powerful force of 36 tanks, including the much-lauded T-90M models, alongside 40 motorcycle troops. This village, about 12.4 miles from Pokrovsk, was crucial for Ukraine's defensive strategy. If Russia could capture Shkova, its troops could dig in and use it as a strategic launching point for future assaults on Pokrovsk. However, Ukraine's 225th Assault Regiment was on high alert, bolstered by the elite 1st Azov Corps. They had been meticulously preparing, working together to create a defensive line that would withstand the impending onslaught. As the Russian forces advanced, coming in waves from different directions, the Ukrainian defenders stood firm, ready to repel the attack. The offensive began badly for Russia. Instead of sending in heavy tanks first, they led with motorcycle troops, perhaps hoping to deplete Ukraine's ammunition. This decision was disastrous. As waves of Russian troops pushed forward, Ukraine unleashed a barrage of mines, drones, and artillery that halted the assault almost immediately. The Ukrainian forces destroyed 20 Russian vehicles, including 3 tanks, before the Russians could even establish a foothold. Within hours, the Russian troops faced chaos. The motorcycles, meant to scout the path, became easy targets. Ukrainian defenses had anticipated this approach. A counteroffensive was launched by Ukraine, and soon, Russia's forces were scattering back toward Volodymyrivka, a village just south of Shkova. As Ukrainian bomber drones soared overhead, the remnants of the Russian troop formations were quickly picked off throughout the night. The initial assault, which Russia had deemed a straightforward operation, turned into a catastrophic failure. By the end of the confrontation, Russia had lost not just vehicles, but a significant number of its troops, 107 confirmed dead, with many more injured. What they believed would be a triumphant march through Shkova instead became a humiliating retreat. The T-90M, hailed by Vladimir Putin as the pinnacle of modern armored warfare, had failed to deliver the promised results. If this supposedly superior tank couldn't withstand the defensive strategies of Ukraine, then what did that say about Russia's military prowess? The answer lay in the reality of the battlefield, where hype often crumbles against strategic preparation and decisive action. But this was just the beginning. What would Russia's next step be after such a crushing defeat? Would they regroup and rethink their strategy, or would they double down on their flawed tactics? The world was watching, and so were the defenders of Ukraine. The stakes were higher than ever. In a stunning revelation, the battlefield made a mockery of Russia's invincible myth surrounding the T-90M tank. As of October 14, over 11,256 Russian tanks lay in ruins at the hands of Ukraine's relentless forces, a staggering statistic that speaks volumes about the current war. Within this chaos, Russian President Vladimir Putin believed he was strategically holding his best tanks in reserve, a critical error that Ukraine shattered in mere moments. On October 9, the T-90M, heralded by Putin as the pinnacle of armored warfare, faced off against Ukrainian defenses in Pokrovsk. This would be the moment when years of anticipation would crumble as Ukraine proved that even Russia's most formidable machines could fall like dominoes. Russia had saved its T-90M tanks for a significant offensive, expecting to crush Ukrainian resistance with overwhelming force, but the outcome was catastrophic. With meticulous planning, Russia amassed a formidable strike force around Pokrovsk, deploying 36 tanks, including the T-90M, as well as several armored vehicles. The target? The small village of Shkova, a strategic point in the ongoing struggle. Yet, unbeknownst to them, Ukraine was ready. The 225th Assault Regiment fortified Shkova, aided by the elite 1st Azov Corps, who brought experience from previous battles to reinforce the village's defenses against the impending storm. As waves of Russian infantry and tanks surged forward, Ukraine unleashed a counteroffensive with explosive precision. The sounds of artillery fire split the air, mingling with the whir of drones, an eerie reminder of the modern battlefield's unforgiving nature. Russian troops, caught off guard, faced a barrage of explosives, drones, and mines that transformed their assault into a horrific retreat. Within hours, the Russian mechanized assault met its end. Ukraine's forces crippled a staggering 20 vehicles, including 3 tanks, as they unleashed a torrent of firepower. The aftermath? Russia's humiliation was tangible, with losses tallying to 3 tanks, 16 armored vehicles, and 41 motorcycles, leaving Putin to confront the bitter truth of a failed offensive. But what about the T-90M itself? This supposed marvel of modern engineering proved incapable of withstanding the very threats of the battlefield. Design flaws, like the notorious spinning turret syndrome, rendered the tank not just vulnerable but uncontrollable. Reports surfaced of incidents where drones struck, causing turrets to rotate uncontrollably, forcing crews to abandon their posts in panic. The irony was cruel: Russia's most advanced tank crumbled under the weight of its own shortcomings. Ukraine's dynamic response, including innovative tactics and the deployment of advanced drone technology, starkly contrasted against Russia's outdated strategies. With losses mounting, Russian morale plummeted, exposing the glaring deficiencies underlying their military might. Putin's confidence in his armored forces faded as the battlefield painted a clearer picture of the true state of Russian military prowess. In the wake of the devastation on October 9, one question remains: can Russia regroup and adapt? Or has the saga of the T-90M become a poignant reminder of the perils of overconfidence? As intelligence reports suggest, Russia intends to double down on its tank strategies. Only time will tell if it can innovate fast enough to avoid the fate that befell the pride of its military might. Amidst the chaos of war, an astonishing number emerges from the front line. Ukraine has obliterated over 11,256 Russian tanks by mid-October. Yet, in a twist of irony, President Vladimir Putin believed he had devised a foolproof strategy. He thought the majority of Ukraine's victories were merely against outdated Soviet-era relics, while he preserved Russia's most advanced models for a time of reckoning. But when he unleashed his prized T-90M tanks, victory rapidly slipped through his fingers. On October 9, the ground trembled as Russian forces, brimming with confidence, launched a major offensive near Pokrovsk. Putin's hopes were sky-high. He believed the T-90M, which he boasted was the pinnacle of Russian innovation, the best tank in the world, would finally shift the balance of power. Armed with cutting-edge technology and immense firepower, these tanks were expected to be the harbingers of victory. But reality soon shattered his illusions as Ukrainian forces, seasoned and resolute, prepared for confrontation in the small village of Shukova. An electric tension enveloped the battlefield as Russian troops, accompanied by motorcycle units and armored vehicles, surged forward. Yet, unbeknownst to them, the Ukraine's 225th Assault Regiment and the elite 1st Azov Corps lay in wait, their defenses bolstered with determination and strategic prowess. The air exploded with the furious sounds of cannon fire and the whirring of drones. As the Turkish-made Bayraktar drones darted above, bombs rained down upon the advancing troops. This was no ordinary battle, it was a meticulously orchestrated defense against a deluge of military might. In mere moments, chaos reigned as mines detonated beneath Russian vehicles, sending debris airborne. Ukrainian forces unleashed a relentless assault, immobilizing over 20 enemy vehicles, including 3 of the vaunted T-90M tanks. The tide turned swiftly, forcing the once mighty Russian army to retreat in disarray. By nightfall, the tally revealed a catastrophic loss: 3 tanks, 16 armored fighting vehicles, and 41 motorcycles lay in ruins, alongside the confirmed deaths of 107 soldiers. What had promised to be a glorious victory spiraled into a crushing defeat. Why did this meticulously planned assault unravel so tragically? At the heart of the matter lay an unsettling truth about the T-90M, a relic of outdated Soviet design masquerading as a symbol of modern warfare. Despite its superficial advancements, the tank faltered against today's sophisticated weaponry and tactical innovations, exposing deep flaws not only in its engineering but in Russia's entire military strategy. As October 10 dawned, a haunting question lingered in the air: how could a weapon hailed as the world's finest fail so dramatically? The aftermath of this battle painted a sobering picture for Russia and its leadership. The T-90M, adorned with the badges of modernization, was found woefully inadequate in combat against today's prevailing technologies. As remnants of twisted metal lay scattered across the battlefield, the reality had set in: overconfidence in antiquated designs breeds catastrophic outcomes. And the consequences of these failures may alter the trajectory of military engagements for years to come. What path lies ahead for Russia as it grapples with this reality? The world watched closely as echoes of defeat shaped discussions around military strategies. As the dust settled, one profound question emerged: will Russia adapt to its newfound vulnerabilities, or will it continue to stumble blindly through the ruins of its own complacency? The anticipation of the next phase of this unfolding saga looms large, illuminated by the stark lessons learned from the battlefield.